if your mentality is that you have to push through burnout and push through fatigue and push through when you feel knocked down, that's not really, I would argue that's not really self-respect at all. It's bordering on self-abuse in a way.
So Josh, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, it's new.
We have a change. We had a pretty big change of venue here.
Change of venue. Yep.
Yeah, we just we outgrew our studio, and so we went from a probably a 50 square foot office to a 20 square foot corner.
Yeah,
it's pretty nice. I like it.
We're moving up in the world.
Yeah. And no, it's actually no. We're moving on. We're growing. So we have. Yeah. I mean, we've hired some new therapists, and so that's we need to make some more room for that part of our business. And it's been pretty cool to finally have that dream realized.
Yeah, it's neat.
Makes me think like it really, us. I mean, us moving really not that big of a deal. It's just down the hall, but it feels like we're getting some momentum here.
Yeah, we're getting a little momentum. That's good. That's
yeah.
good. And today we're going to talk about micro-resilience.
Part of the Momentum Mechanics series. That
Yes, indeed.
Created,
yes, indeed. So I always like to, what do you think, what would you define resilience as?
Resilience to me is being able to get back up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what a lot of people say is they picture, bouncing back.
Yep.
Toughness, grit, strength, fortitude, all that kind of stuff. And when people talk about that, I picture them referring to like these dramatic situations that happen that knock them down. It's to you think of getting in a fist fight. Yeah, it's the sucker punch that knocks you down and puts you down and out. Right.
Right.
But I think a lot of time in life, life doesn't really knock us down so much as it drains us slowly over time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of the person that works really hard at work, burning the candle on both ends, that slowly gets drained over time until one day they just feel burnt out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's one big way, or that's one way that life kind of drains our energy. And so in those kind of situations, it's not a major life event that necessarily happens. And in that sense, we don't really need a comeback story, a dramatic comeback. We just kind of need a system that helps us recover. And so that's kind of what I want to touch on today is this idea of micro-resilience. It doesn't always, in the same way that life doesn't drain us with these dramatic major events all the time. It does happen. Certainly major ththings happen, but a lot of maintaining our resilience over time is having a recovery system that allows us to get our energy back after we've lost it. So today we're going to be talking about what I call micro-resilience, which are really just small actions that rebuild momentum when you feel depleted or overwhelmed or even emotionally worn down. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I am curious about the micro piece of that.
Well, let's first talk about why resilience fails us, and it fails us because there's an idea in our culture, in our societies, that says resilience is about pushing through, but in reality, chronic stress depletes our cognitive, emotional, and physical resources over time. Like I mentioned before, it's a slow burn. And it doesn't happen all at once. It just kind of happens over time until suddenly we've all had those days where we just feel so exhausted that sometimes we feel physically sick or we just can't do it anymore. It impacts our mood. We've all had those days.
Right.
And what's important to note is that the nervous system wasn't designed for constant threat and constant demand. We can kind of, threats and the demands placed upon us, they impact our nervous system in the same way.
I say they're kind of almost one and the same in your body.
Through stress, yep. And so to that end, when you think about it, burnout really isn't so much weakness as it is a biological fact that we have to face. It's kind of part of the human condition that we're all faced with. And so people that are resilient over time or don't suffer as much burnout, it's not that they don't get tired or don't get worn down. It's that they've developed systems in place that allow them to build back up their energy over time. They have a recovery system
Sure.
that enables us to get back. So I would say it's not, if you're tired or if you're exhausted, it's not because you lack the resilience. Sometimes we do that to ourselves. We say, I'm exhausted because I'm not resilient. And if I was more resilient, I'd be able to push through.
Right.
So if you're exhausted, it's not about the fact that you lack resilience. It's because you've been resilient for too long without giving yourself a chance to recover.
Do you know why those people who seem to have just like trampoline shoes, they just bounce right back up again? You say that they have like these things that they do,
yeah,
to manage their stress and and keep the resilience up. Are you going to talk about that at all?
We'll talk about that soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
And it's different for every person. My goal is to kind of give some suggestions and kind of point people in the right direction.
Sure.
But really to help understand that typically when we get burnt out, it's a slow burn over time. In professions that have a high burnout rate, they didn't enter the profession being burnt out. It happened over time from all these different things that kind of have drained their energy over time without giving them the chance to recover.
Sure.
To recover and gain their energy back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's talk about the physiology of energy depletion, just from a practical standpoint. So
Sure.
when we think about stress, when we're under stress, whether we're talking about negative stress, but positive stress also, if excessive good stress, it hijacks our executive functioning, and our executive functioning comes from the part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex of our brain that allows us to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have excessive stress, it impacts that in a negative way. So, for example, elevated cortisol, which is associated with high stress levels, it can impair our focus, our memory, and even our motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Focus, memory, motivation, those are all central components to our executive functioning. And when someone goes in for like a neuropsychological evaluation, it is assessing those things. It's assessing memory, it's assessing someone's sustained focus, it's looking at inhibition, it's looking at all these different things. And those things are directly impacted by stress. And so if somebody has a high amount of stress, it's going to hijack our executive function, which in turn causes fatigue over time.
Got it.
Another impact, or another way that we get depleted, is through sleep disruption. So we have stress. It not only hijacks our executive functioning, it also impacts our sleep, which then disrupts our emotional regulation. So if we're so stressed out that we can't sleep, for example, or our sleeping hygiene is poor, that worsens our ability to regulate our emotions. So have you ever had those days where you haven't slept well for an extended period of time, and essentially you're crabby? We've all had those days.
Almost every day of my life. Yeah. It's not that bad.
So that, but we all know intrinsically that poor sleep results in having a bad day. And what's a bad day? A bad day is when you don't feel well. We don't feel well emotionally because we're tired. Our brain has to then pull energy from other sources, and our emotional stability, I should say, or our emotional regulation suffers as a result. And so how does stress play a role in that? Decision fatigue increases avoidance and irritability as well, especially when we're sleep deprived, as another example. So that's another physiology of depletion.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue, kind of talking about like why our energy depletes and so forth. Depletion, if we look at like a car that's driving down the road, a dramatic life event would be something like a flat tire on a car, right? You have to address it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue that depletion, or energy depletion, it isn't about a flat tire. It's more about running an engine without oil. You can maybe run it for a little while, but at some point you're going to run into pretty major issues.
Sure.
Are you tracking me so far?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So then I want to talk about like what is micro-resilience. We've talked about resilience as a whole, but when I'm talking about like micro-resilience, what is it? Well, I'm trying to the idea behind micro-resilience is to shrink it down into something more manageable.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about resilience, sometimes we like to think of these big things that we have to do, but I would argue that it's more important to build in smaller things throughout your day that allows you to be resilient over time. And so to that extent, micro-resilience refers to brief internal actions that restore enough capacity to keep you moving forward. So it's these little things you can do. Yeah, a quick charge. These little things that kind of get you. You talk about bouncing back. It's these little bounce backs that you can do, modifications you can do to your environment and to your routine that allows you to bounce back in an effective way.
Sure.
It's not using rest as an escape to that extent. It's using more rest as a way to refuel. So when we get burnt out and chronically stressed, we use rest as an escape. And we view rest as, I need to go rest to escape. But I would argue that we need to look at rest as more of a refueling process.
You need to recharge.
We're not made to run on empty for forever. At some point, we have to give ourselves a chance to refuel. So to that end, you don't need a full reset. You just need enough recovery to take the next step. And so the challenge is not always looking at the huge picture when you're burnt out or when you're feeling stress. It's using this idea of micro resilience to kind of get yourself back on your feet with these smaller steps that you can take to move you forward.
Sure.
So there's three core what I call micro resilience domains. Okay, there's a physiological reset. Obviously, those are the obvious physical things that we can do. Things like sleep, movement is a big one, nutrition, those kinds of things. Those physiological things help us reset. For example, when we don't eat well, we feel lousy, right? So why not be proactive and incorporate nutrition into your micro resilience plan? That's an example of a micro resilience domain of a physiological reset.
Sure.
Another domain of micro resilience is cognitively resetting. So a cognitive reset looks like reducing your decision load. We'll talk a little bit about that. Using checklists to offload some of your memory stores, those kinds of things. That's a cognitive reset. It's using cognitive strategies to reduce the load, to reduce the stress load that you experience.
I suppose a kind of a cognitive reset could be something as simple as, if you're getting overwhelmed with a project at work, just take a quick break and play a quick game or something, or just do something to get your mind off of things, or
something as simple as stepping back, and rather than thinking of the end goal that you have to achieve with that particular project, is what's the next small step in that moment that you can do to move you towards the finish line. And what that does is it removes the stress of, I need to accomplish this huge task all at once, to, I just need to do this one micro step to move me forward. And that provides relief because it doesn't feel as weighty. It doesn't create as much stress on your nervous system.
I found too, if I'm working on a big, deep project that requires a lot of intense effort, I enjoy that stuff and I get into it. I'm really enjoying it. Then all of a sudden I just hit a wall suddenly.
Yep.
All of a sudden my brain stops working and I'm like, okay, but then I get frustrated. I'm like, I want to continue doing this, but clearly I'm not. And so at that point, I just close it up and I do some more brainless, mindless work.
Yeah.
Or just even take a complete break and just kind of help clear the mind a little bit.
So all that is good, but what I would argue is that it's better to build in micro resilience before that happens. So rather than working 3 hours continuously on the same big, deep project, if you have a 3 hour block of time that you're going to be working on it, build in some breaks that are like 2 to 3 minutes here and there to kind of break up the monotony or the focus time that you have.
Just reset. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's physiological reset, which involves sleep, movement, nutrition. There's a cognitive reset that incorporates reducing the decision load and looking at other cognitive strategies. And then there's the emotional reset. And the emotional reset is really giving yourself some grace and identifying that your emotions play a really big role in our stress levels. And so it's things like, naming the fatigue. It just means calling it out and addressing it, or calling it by name. I'm tired. That's why I'm acting this way, or that's why I'm having a hard time. Things like self-compassion. I know that sounds kind of touchy-feely and feel good, but sometimes we are the meanest to ourselves. We would never treat somebody else the way we treat ourselves a lot of times. And so an emotional reset is having some compassion for yourself every once in a while, and recognizing that you have limitations as a human being, and to be okay with those limitations.
So in other words, give yourself a little love.
There's a little grace.
And a little grace.
Yep.
And what that does is
it lowers the pressure that you experience.
Yeah.
And so it's important to do those things. So physiological reset, cognitive reset, and emotional reset are the three micro resilience areas.
But what if you are a type A person?
Then you need therapy.
Got any openings?
I'm kidding.
I need some therapy. No, because no, seriously, I mean,
So
I'm a recovering type A person.
So when you say type A, what do you mean? That's the first important thing is to say, like, a lot of people say that they're type A.
Anything less than perfection is not an option.
Okay, so then you're going to have to do an even hard look at emotional reset, because if you're pursuing perfection, we externally, like mentally, we know that perfection is impossible.
Yeah.
Yet we continue to do it. And so that's kind of the definition of insanity, which is, doing the same thing over and over but expecting a different result.
You call me insane?
No. I'm just pointing out that you have
indirectly.
I'm pointing out that you're distorting reality with your type A personality,
okay.
right?
Perfection is not attainable.
Yeah, and so for someone like, I think type A people are usually very successful, but they're also some of the most high stress people that you'll run into, because they can't let things go. They overthink, they overanalyze, they get caught down in the weeds, they get caught down in the details because of the perfection piece. And those are individuals. We all get burnt out, but type A individuals that are type A, as you're describing, they can burn out much quicker. They could burn out a lot quicker because of all the extra load that they carry.
The unnecessary
load that really
strain that I put on myself.
Yeah, it's like an extra load of bricks that you're dragging around behind you
for no reason.
Absolutely don't need to.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about micro resilience in action. I always say, it's great to talk about these things conceptually, but what do you do in your daily life, and how can you improve things?
Mm-hmm.
How can you do things better so that you don't burn out in this case, and so that you can practice micro resiliency? This one's going to rub you the wrong way, because you're
I'm looking at it right now, and my hair is already standing on the back of my neck.
It's called the 10% rule. So when we talk about the 10% rule, what you were probably thinking about at first glance as well, you have to perform at the top 10%. And I'm actually flipping that upside down, and I'm saying, do a task at 10% intensity for a little while. Yeah.
I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
What I would argue is that under effort sometimes builds momentum. Now, I don't want people taking this and saying, well, I can just give 10% at work.
Dr. Josh said 10%.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling overwhelmed, is to turn back the dial a little bit, and try doing a task at much smaller intensity to prove to yourself that you can still engage in productive activity without burning yourself out. Professionals, a lot of times, they burn out in their field because they feel that they're expected to be 100% on
all the time,
100% of the time.
Yeah.
And what I'm just saying is, you can't. That's an impossibility to be 100% on 100% of the time. And the 10% rule in this case, again, do a task at 10% intensity, is something that a lot of us already do. We just won't admit that we're doing it. I would argue, John, that there are times when you're actually doing a task at 10% rather than 100%. And we just refuse to acknowledge it.
I will admit that I do nothing 10%, but I do 10 things at 1% at the same time.
See, there you go.
See what I did there? Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree. There's a
lot
of waste of time.
Now, is it a good idea to do 10% intensity all the time? Absolutely not. There's a time and a place to put going all in all the time.
Are you advocating for balance?
I'm advocating for balance, yeah. Yep. And life is about balance, right?
Perish the thought.
Yep.
No.
Another idea of micro-resilience in action is one decision removed. You've ever gotten to the end of a long day and your wife asks you, do you want salsa or French dressing on your taco salad, and you just can't make a decision? Or the end of a long week and you're going out to eat, and it's the most difficult decision of the entire week is to decide where you want to go grab a bite to eat. Those decisions aren't difficult to make, but they are difficult in the moment because of decision fatigue. You've made thousands of decisions throughout the day, throughout the week, and at some point, each decision takes energy, as big or small as it is, because there's a lot of cognitive resources that go into it. And so, if we can, the idea of one decision removed is let's rather than having to reactively make a decision in the moment, pre-decide something. And if you pre-decide one recurring choice, it conserves energy over time.
Yeah.
So there's a decision that you're constantly making.
Right.
Make the decision ahead of time, pre-decide it, a recurring choice, and then that way it conserves energy in the long run.
But what if I make the decision and my wife doesn't like the decision?
Well, that's a relational issue that you should probably talk through first, maybe, before you pre-decide.
She never wants to go to Burger King, Josh.
Well, I think I have full confidence that you and Amanda can work through and process that concerning decision.
Well, I appreciate that confidence in our marriage.
So you may want to pre-decide that, hey, if we have a disagreement over where we're going to go get our fast food junk.
Oh no, she wants to know. This is like when we're going on a date, and like she wants go to a nice sit-down restaurant, and I say, hey, what about Burger King? I mean, you know,
I don't think she's amused at that joke.
She's not really okay.
I don't think she's amused.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
We don't go on dates to Burger King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one decision removed, and the other idea, the other option or other strategy for micro resilience in action is energy matching. Do you know what energy matching is?
I do know what it is, but how about you explain it?
So this is where it's really good to be organized and to kind of maintain some kind of system of tasks that you have to do or projects that you're working on. Mm-hmm. And the goal is you have all that in one place, so that way the energy that you have in the moment the task that you're going to do in the moment matches your current capacity. So, for example, if you have 15 minutes left in your workday, it's obviously isn't, and you're tired, you're obviously not going to start a major project. Yeah. But there's probably a whole lot of other smaller tasks that you can do, that you can have on your list of things to do, that don't require hardly any energy expense whatsoever.
Right.
The challenge is to have them readily available, so that way you can select a task that meets your current capacity. Does that make sense?
Right, and remembering where you have that task.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I'm a big person with this, is recovery rituals. And recovery rituals are just habits that we establish in our lives, and it's different for everybody. They're short, predictable resets that cue rest or safety. It could be 5 minutes of listening to music, or you'll see a lot of people walking during the workday. It's little resets during the day that kind of gives you a chance to breathe and kind of reset yourself.
What's the reset that you have?
That I have reading. Yep. I always have a book with me. If I need a different way to occupy my mind, to reset, I read. And I like to read, and again, it's different for everybody, but I like to read because it forces my brain to shift gears.
Yeah, get your mind off of the thing that you're getting stressed out about.
So I'm going from focus on one thing to shifting my attention, and I have to focus on the book I'm reading.
Yeah.
And it's never, my rule is that it can't be a self-help book.
I was going to say, yeah, what kind of book do you, it's probably not a self-help book.
A fiction book. Yep. An easy read.
Fiction, fun, page turner.
Yep. Some people play mobile games on their phone. What are you reading right now? Those kind of things. I am reading Dan Brown's newest book.
He's got a new book? Is it part of the Da Vinci Code anthology?
Not really. It's along the same lines. But, yeah, good book.
I hate reading Dan Brown books.
Why?
Because I literally read it in one sitting.
Well, then you've only done that 4 times, right?
No, he's had the Da Vinci Code. No, he started with Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, and then there's 2 more in the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, is there?
There's a total of 4, and then he has one called Digital Fortress, which I love that book. He wrote that before the Da Vinci Code. Super good. And then something like Snowstorm or something like that.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll have to. I haven't read them all.
Good stuff. I'll have to read one of those again.
So that's recovery rituals. The last one I want to talk about is what I call momentum banking. So all these things that we've talked about are good, but if you don't start, if you're going to decide to do them when you're tired, you're going to fail. Meaning you have to prepare you have to prepare on good days for future tired you, right? So you had to have these things set up ahead of time, knowing what you're going to do, so that way when you do get burnt out and get tired and feel the stress, you can participate in them and not have to think about what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to prepare ahead of time. And this is where the planning community really gets on board is plan out your ideal week and all these different things. But the whole goal is different for everybody. But the goal here is to identify what you can do to practice micro resilience when the future you gets tired.
Sure. That's good.
That's being prepared. It's being prepared. All right. To kind of wrap it up here a little bit, really the whole goal of this is kind of looking at sustainable momentum over time. So what I really want to communicate with you and everybody else is that taking time to recover is not quitting. If you compare it to people in like substance use recovery, they would say that recovery is not quitting on life. It's certainly quitting an unhealthy behavior. But it means slowing down and focusing your efforts elsewhere so that way you can bounce back. So again, recovery is not quitting, but it does mean slowing your pace down. And that slower pace does not mean a lack of ambition. It just means that you're taking care of yourself so that way you can be a better person or a better, more productive individual moving forward.
In some way, you could look at it as a slowing down to speed up.
Exactly.
I use that phrase a lot.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
We use that phrase a lot, I'm talking globally speaking, in our society, but we don't often practice it. And
sounds nice.
Yeah. So I would argue that, it's better to be consistent with micro resilience things rather than having these massive pockets of time where you're going to rest just to go do an escape. So if you can be more consistent over time with putting resiliency practices in place, then you're going to be able to sustain that over time. And sustainability is really, when you think about it, a form of self-respect. If your mentality is that you have to push through burnout and push through fatigue and push through when you feel knocked down, I would argue that's not really self-respect at all. It's bordering on self-abuse in a way.
Oh.
As far as from the standpoint that you're not taking care of yourself.
Right.
Maybe not self-abuse, but more like self-neglect. You're neglecting yourself in the present, and the future you is suffering.
That makes sense.
And to kind of close, momentum isn't built by pushing harder. It's built by recovering smarter. So we talk about work smarter, not harder. Momentum is built by recovering smarter as well. So are you ready for the big mini challenge that I always give people?
Yes, Josh.
Okay. Identify one area where you feel depleted, John. Okay. You got it in your head?
Yes.
Choose one micro resilience action, whether it's sleep, whether it's building in some structure into your life where there needs to be simplifying a process, for example, or just self-kindness, and then apply it daily for 5 days.
5 days?
5 days.
5 days.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
See what it takes. And again, I would just want to remind you that building resilience is not all about massive change all at once. It's making small, nuanced changes to our lives that make things just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the more we can adjust things to make things just a little bit better, those little decisions that we make add up over time and improve our lives greatly. So again, resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about building a system that supports who you are now. And every little decision that we make positively in the area of micro resilience kind of contributes to that. Micro resilience.
Enough said, Josh.
Enough said. Next time we're going to talk about, at least after the holidays, I should say, we're going to talk about what I call cognitive speed bumps, and that's about how thinking traps slow momentum and how to reframe it in real time.
Ooh, I need that one.
Thinking is our brains are our own worst enemy.
I would agree on that for sure.